everyone, and welcome to a fresh chapter of the Turing Boundaryless series. I'm your host today. Happy to be here. I'm Fernanda Zinger, Senior Manager, Dev Success at Turing. And I'd like everyone to put their hands together for a very, very special guest who has joined me today. Mr. Ahmad Hazrai is the Senior Director of Product Data Science at Turing. And formerly, he was working as a social technical information scientist working on Indeed's data science team. Prior to that, he held an assistant professor position in the iSchool at Kent State University and a postdoctorate research fellow position at the Center for Global Communication Studies at the Annenberg School for Communication at the University of Pennsylvania. He received his PhD in information studies from the College of Computing and Informatics at Drexel University in 2014. Today, we will learn more about his super exciting journey as an engineering leader, his transition from academia to industry, his leadership style, and most importantly, get some insights into how Turing makes informed decisions using data science. Hi, Ahmad. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today. How are you?
Thank you, Fernanda. I'm very good. Thank you for having me today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Well, to start with, let's talk about your very, very exciting career journey. I'm curious, like you have had such a different path to career than most people, right? So you started off as an architect and worked in academia before you finally started working in the tech industry. How did this all come to be? Tell us.
Okay, yeah, I have a different background. Sometimes my friends call it the curious case of Ahmad. So I went to, in the 90s, I went to college, get a combined MS-BS degree in architecture. I got a master's in architecture, and with a focus on urban design, I worked as a practicing architect. However, there was a path put in front of me by life that I started working as a product director for, and get involved. At the time, I didn't even know the name is product management. I was in charge of product technology for developing information infrastructure for research centers who focus on cultural heritage and architectural heritage. So that was my segue to learning about how to build software products, how to build different components for information technology. Through that, I actually developed an interest in data and information science, decided to get a PhD focusing on how we can use AI to generate coherent narratives outside of scattered data pieces. But at the time, it was the onset of deep learning. I was not even aware of it. I was pursuing symbolic AI, what they call it, good old-fashioned AI, which was not very convenient with doing that. However, that shifted my life to academia. So at the time, I started doing what today we call it data science research in a very different setting. And I graduated. I wanted to do research because that was what I was passionate about it. I went into academia, did a postdoc. I became a university professor teaching information and data science courses. But there was a moment in my life I thought that I enjoyed the faster pace of activities. I want to see the impact. I want more much quickly. And that was the case for me that I decided to transition to academia. But it wasn't interesting because some people said, okay, you spent so much time into getting degrees in architecture, graduate degrees in architecture, whether it was a waste of time, or do you think that has a positive impact? Actually, I think there are some transferable skills when you learn something that you can apply. And for me, from architecture, one of the biggest points is as an architect, you should always keep the big picture in mind, because architects work with different cross-functional partners like electrical engineering, structural engineering, mechanical engineering, all of those sort of things, while they maintaining an overall holistic view of the final outcome or product, which can be a building, which can be a landscape. And that really helps when you get involved with the development of software products. Again, maintaining the overall holistic view, that was very helpful.
Wow, yeah. And has this transition been smooth, you would say, or intense? What would be the best way to describe the transition process itself?
I'm not. Transition is always not easy, in my opinion. That requires effort, but it depends on your attitude. That if you enjoy growth and if you have an adventurous taste, sometimes you want some challenge to stretch yourself, to build your muscles. For me, that's always been like that. So I enjoy um, transitioning and experiencing new areas and spaces. So it required a lot of effort, especially when going from architecture to the space of informatics, computing. Uh, but it has been, I think, rewarding and good.
Amazing, amazing. And Emma, before diving right into the discussion, we're talking about this transition. I would love to hear your thoughts on working fully remote, right? What did you make of remote work initially? How was it for you? Like, were you remote before joining Turing? I guess that's my first question.
Yeah, I think that's a very common question coming up in conversations. Yeah, pandemic forced a lot of us who
Yep.
had the luxury of actually being able to work remotely, because a lot of people were like first responders, they could not do that.
Yep.
Um, yeah, starting March 2020, when I was working at Indeed, all of the company shifted to the remote move globally. Went from home, we went to home and started working from home. That was also an interesting opportunity for my team at the time at the company to investigate this. I was leading the people science team. It was an experiment for us, a natural experiment that how remote work impacts productivity, and we developed some causal models, did the analysis, and we learned that there was initial dip in the productivity, probably people figuring out how to manage
Wow.
childcare and other stuff. But within 3 weeks, the productivity reached back to its formal level. And then a few months down the road, we learned that actually net productivity, especially for software engineering team, increased and not decreased. And that was one of the components that helped my previous employer to make remote and flex hybrid as a permanent option. And that completely changed the game for them, because now outside of their tech hubs, which are a few cities in the US or other countries, they could hire anywhere, any country that they have a tech office. So that's how I started. So I spent almost a year and a half, more than a year, in remote work. But it was a little bit different from the way that Turing operates. Turing is a fully remote, and they do not even impose within any country some limitations. So I could be anywhere, and that actually opened a nice opportunity for me, because there was a family opportunity happened. My wife accepted a faculty position in a prestigious university in another city, which is Chicago. So I jumped on the opportunity with Turing because it let me easily move to another city, still maintaining and working with the same team, having the same opportunity. So that's working well for me.
That's a great story, and I'm pretty sure you are a remote work advocate and lover nowadays. Like we are all like that at Turing, but of course, remote work has its challenges too. What would you consider the biggest challenges of remote working with teams are? And as a follow up, how do you handle those?
Sure. I think that when we're talking about remote work, there are two types of remote work. So one, you are remote, you are not within a central office, but you are around same time zone or time zone friendly time differences. It means that 1 or 2 hours of time zone difference. So people are waking up together and working within a time space. In that mode, I think the main challenge is that how you can recreate the same level of connection and collaboration that you could do in a physical space. Connection means that, oh, you got a new employee on board, that how can you give them the same onboarding experience? They feel they belong to the team, and make the connection with everyone, and they can lead to a productive collaboration. The other thing is that when we were in the space, we have these jam sessions, brainstorming, doing things on the whiteboards and jumping to our computers to do coding. How can we recreate that in a remote environment? For most of this, I think we globally learned a lot of new lessons using different tools, being prepared, and adding some activities we never expected to have on Zoom. For example, I learned that and add that to my teams, that we have social events we are doing. It is not, we do like game hours, so that's we do an online game together to build connection. That's the idea. Or having a happy hour. I mean, it cannot be physically, but someone can bring their drink or whatever they do. It can be a tea or it can be a whiskey or whatever. But they can talk about it. We can talk about our personal life outside the work and build a connection. In terms of collaboration, we experimented with a lot of different tools to eventually find things that, okay, when we do screen sharing, for example, my team is a data science team. We write a lot of math formulas and these sort of things. We find things that how you can write with hand, how you can collaborate on developing these ideas. So there was a learning experience we tried to overcome. But still, in Turing, we do these offsites that we sometimes physically bring people together, probably once a quarter, every 6 months, that having again, build that connection and that spirit of collaboration. The second mode of remote is that when you have a global team, it means that not only everyone is remote, but people are in a very different time zone, sometimes with 10, 12 hours of time difference. And that imposes its own challenges, because now it's not that whether you can connect while all of you have a same rhythm of life, but this rhythm has a different temporal moment. So some people might wake up in, let's say, India 10 hours earlier than me, and then we have to work. So we have an overlap always between this team. Something that is very important for me is that I'm working with these global team members. I always mention that I want to make sure they are taking care of their I'm a very serious advocate of getting proper sleep. I make this reading for my teams, that a book called Why We Sleep by Paul Walker, which is a neuroscientist at the University of Berkeley, that tells you the importance of sleep. It's very important for me because I want people to be healthy, have a good mental health, see them as a whole person. And what we learned that there are a third of population that are actually better performing in the evening. So they're genetically programmed to be evening people. And it seems that we are attracting those type of people in those time zones. And that is a very important thing, that, oh, these people are actually happier working within this mode. And that was one of the reasons that sometimes they join a company in a different time zone, because they were not. I have employees that told me they were never be a day person. They were miserable waking up early, and now they enjoy it much better. So that's also helped to finding and bridging this gap in time zone. I think these three are the main reasons, depending on the mode of your remote collaboration.
Yeah, wow, so many interesting points. As someone who also leads remote teams, I totally agree on the finding room for team bonding, and also in terms of collaboration, finding the right tools that will enable that collaboration. The sleep part is the best one. Can you repeat the name of the book and author again, please?
Yeah, it's the book about the book about sleep, and the name is that Why We Sleep, and it was a New York Times bestseller in 2019, and it is written by Paul Walker.
Yeah, well, I most definitely need to read it, because I don't get the 8 hours, and I mean every night, and I think I can improve my sleep, and I would be like happy to learn about the benefits. I think probably very insightful. And I'm curious now, Emma, like you were talking about like time zones and how people have like different performance levels depending on the shift they're working on throughout the day. How about you? Are you an early bird or a night owl? What's the best?
Okay, this is something I learned in that book. There are three, populations of the people genetically defined in three groups. One are day people, and 1/3 are night people, and 1/3 are flexible. They can switch in between the two modes. I grew up in a family of night people, and I always assumed I'm
Wow.
a night person. But then the life made me to become a day person, and that created this false assumption in myself that everyone can switch. But when later I learned about that through reading Walker's book, I noticed that, oh, probably I was from one of those people of 1/3 of the people who can be either mode. So currently I am operating on a day person
Different mode.
mode. Yeah.
Interesting, very interesting. Okay, let's talk now about your work at Turing specifically. Now, this has been super insightful now, but I wanted to know, you are a senior director of product data science at Turing. What are the key demands of your role? Like maybe in a nutshell.
Sure. Yeah. So I am heading the product data science function. So what is product data science? Product data science is a function that helps product leaders and make informed evidence-based decisions for product development and innovation. So what does that mean? So we can have many ideas. If you're a product developer or a product manager or even a leader in the organization, they can be the great ideas. Okay, should we invest in developing this feature or this platform? Or, oh, I have a new idea that we can change our, let's say, developer vetting flow. How can you evaluate whether this is the right idea to invest in? Whether if you have competing ideas, which one is the better one? What product data science does, use the scientific methods, the methods that developed in general sciences, using statistical methods to draw conclusion based on the observed data to tell you to evaluate ideas, and also develop some fundamental understanding of the forces within the domain that you're working on. For example, what is the impact of, let's say, a developer skills when they passed the test in their success? What is the impact of their availability or their intention or the level of their assertiveness and these sort of things? How can we really assess this? So to develop that scientific understanding, we use what has been developed in the other sciences, or generally the scientific framework, to help product leaders make informed decisions. And I think that's a key for sustainable long-term success of any product development for any technology company.
Wow, that's interesting, insightful. And you're like in terms of the product journey, how would you describe your product roadmap process at Turing to add
Well,
the thoughts you just shared?
yeah, so the product data science, they are the very close partners of product managers and the rest of cross-functional partners for the whole life cycle of product. When I say whole life cycle of product, it can be from the ideation phase. For example, identifying what are the biggest problems or what are the biggest gaps in our product. How can we measure that? So measurement is one of the core foundation of science. Can we measure the size of the problem? And when you identify the size of the problems or opportunity, or we call them opportunity analysis, the product data scientists help with that phase, work closely with the product manager. Okay, this is the biggest problem. And what is the potential of improving our product and attacking each of these problems? And you can identify the potential impact. And when you talk about impact, so that, okay, how we are measuring the impact, how we can evaluate if we have been successful. That means going back and defining measurement framework, what metric you can choose to accurately assess the impact of your intervention or your new product development. These are the things that from the ideation to development of the idea, the product data scientists work closely with the product managers and engineers. Then it comes, okay, we have this product feature, we developed it from different data sources we got. And throughout this process, product data scientists help to inform even design decisions. For example, they can look at the funnel conversion or the journey of developers. I'm just using examples from Turing and see, okay, we can see there are a lot of drops happening here. These are the main pain points. How can we reduce friction? Where did the friction happen? And develop hypotheses that can be turned into interventions in the product. So you got your feature or the product developed and you are ready. That comes the important assessment area. So, okay, we have two competing versions, the old version that we had and this new, we believe, enhanced version. But we cannot say this is enhanced until we put it to test. And that is when we do experimentation. Outside product development, for example, in medical sciences, they call it clinical trials, similar to the way that they test the efficacy of, let's say, COVID vaccine. You can run in a controlled environment between two group of users, what they call them control and treatment, and assess the exact impact of your new design or new feature. Sometimes we had these wonderful ideas, we launched them, and they fail in the test. Okay, that's a huge learning. We try to go back, do a deep dive analysis, and understand why it failed. For example, you launch a new UI and you see everything works well, but your final outcome, actually you get a lower conversion. And when you do the deep dive, you notice, oh, there was a middle piece, which was a suboptimal design, and it created a lot of user churn. So we can immediately inform the designers and the product managers to go and enhance that phase and launch a new experiment. And that helps to the continuous improvement of the product. After we do this, and we, for example, say, okay, this is successful, this new intervention or this new product has better outcomes for the users and users are happier, we are launching them. And time happens that we see all of a sudden a drop in the usage or the user experience degradation. So we do what we call a diagnostic analysis at that point. We do deep dive, we try to identify, slice and dice the data to identify what's the culprit for this. Sometimes it's a bug, and sometimes it's not a bug. For example, an example we build this anomaly detection system that shows all of a sudden one day in a week we got a huge decline in the number of the developers in Brazil taking our wettings. When I looked it up, it was the 200 years anniversary of independence of Brazil. So obviously users on that, they do not spend time getting wedding. They want to party and participate things. So, but we build this system to be able to identify why a product is underperforming, and we should develop some hypothesis. So that's the fourth part. So I said usually in the ideation, development, launch, and post-launch product data scientists working closely with product managers and cross-functional partners.
Interesting. Yeah, that was exactly my next question when it comes to like between this inception moment up to the release of the product, the challenges that come. Okay, you have to run those diagnoses many times. Things don't go as smoothly as planned. But those were all very, very interesting points you brought in. And while on the topic of product, once it's released, right, and is out for general usage, some factors that can come to play are the way that you actually understand whether it's engaging as intended or not, and understand whether it's a success or not, right? You were telling about a couple of things that you do. Okay, this was not as expected, but how does your team at Turing determine the success of the released products when it comes to classifying it as a very successful release?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think that's also a core important thing that both in product management and product data science we consider. When we develop an idea or a feature, first we define a success criteria for it. It means that, for example, again going back to Turing said that you have these devs in that who came take your vetting. And the success criteria is successful, what we call it, successful matches, means that dev get a job that they enjoy, the client get a good dev that they can develop a long-term relationship. So that can be the success criteria. And we have a specific way we can measure that. So when we build let's say a new vetting platform that we believe it can surface better devs with better skills, or at least measure the devs' skill and qualities in a better way and show them to our clients, we expect that success criteria of the successful matches improve within a certain window of time. So when we launch the experiment, we wait and see whether the treatment, who is the group who exposed to the new system, we actually observe that sustainable increase, which is actually statistically significant, not just by chance, and a signal of a little bit of noise that by chance it's improved. It is statistically significant. And that's how we define that is successful. So the gold standard is always experimentation. In some cases, it's not possible to do experiments. There are other methods, we call the causal inference methods, that we can assess that a specific success criteria we define has been improved comparing to the older system or in the absence of a new product.
Interesting. And talking more about you as a leader and your leadership skills, do you have any favorite tools or any favorite methods that you use to communicate with your team members, maintaining this smooth, consistent flow of data and information? Any tips to share with us?
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the elements I believe it's important with what I call an effective team is for sure communication and shared cognition. So what do I mean? I think communication is clear. It's clear that how you can communicate clear expectations to the team members, make sure that always team members understand what's the most important thing for the company and the team to be aligned and to focus all our efforts on the main purpose and priorities of the company. And also make sure that at the individual level, the expectations, the feedback is relayed and received completely with the team. By the shared cognition, it means that you should create an environment that everyone relatively share this understanding that what the team is doing at any point and where is the effort is needed. This is helpful because it helps if someone need a hand in a struggling with a very tough job, other people can fill in and help them. With a remote team, sometimes it might be a little bit challenging. So we are using a different tool. So for one-to-one communication, we use Slack, and we build different groups in Slack, and we have different sub tools that we make sure, and obviously we use Zoom for our video communications. But we also created these processes that to make sure what the work that we are doing is trackable and well documented. For that specific, we use a Jira ticketing system. So every request that comes to the team is just created, goes to the backlog, evaluated by the team based on the priority, and went into the queue for execution. And we track all interactions over that. And when documentation is needed, it's created in our wiki, which is based on the Confluence. At a more granular level, with the personal level or each single project, we also use Asana that helps the team to get this overall overview of every single initiative goes. So there are weekly status updates that the team put in. And we have a weekly sync for the whole team members for product data science that usually start with a you can ask, it's a little bit of playfulness and icebreakers. They usually ask a silly question and everyone should answer that. But then it shifts to the status update mode that we pull out every project and every team member get a sense that what is going on around them. And that's very helpful because sometimes a team member working on developing a model, someone else said, hey, formerly I have done something similar. I can share some code with you and I have some feedback on that. So we use that and for more granular level task management. So these are the hierarchy of tools that we are using. And we also use all of the common tools that are not for communication purposes, but for data science workflows. But among them, something is that we also use the process of code and analysis review as a learning experience. So everything, because we said that our work is science, that's why we call it data science. So it should be reproducible and it should go through peer review. And the peer review in our case is doing code review and analysis review. And we all usually use that as an opportunity for learning. So a team member requests from a different person who is not in their direct team to do code review, have a fresh pair of eyes. And that's an opportunity that other team members learn both about your work and also learn about the method we use across the team.
Oh, interesting. I love how all of those tools like together that it sounds like there's always some room for like putting people first, some bonding, some like more space for actual connection. I love that because when we picture like product and data science, especially in the remote workspace, in the remote work setting, right? I guess it's sort of a stereotype that it needs to be cold and very straightforward, not much time for team bonding or like a more people first approach, as I said. So I love that here and then by listening to you, I see that you have a concern for people, you care for people well-being. I get that sense. I feel like it's important to you.
Yeah, I think it's proven that the happier people, the happier teams are actually also performing better. They also personally more, happier in their life. Work is a very important part of the people's life, and actually it contributes to the overall people's satisfaction and happiness. So it's very important both at a personal human level, that having a good work environment that help people to flourish and be happy, and also contribute them to be doing more meaningful, impactful work. Another component that is very important that we try to foster, and especially within a data science team, what we call the psychological safety. It means that we firmly believe in this growth mindset that from errors you can learn, and that's a growth opportunity, and you grow by learning from your errors. So we embrace failure. We are okay. We are working hard. We are moving fast. We have audacious ideas, and sometimes they fail, and we just take one step back and learn from it and grow. And that's we really fully embrace it. That hey, that's all okay. That we go and we fail, and something we build a model and the numbers do not come out as we expected, and we say okay, interesting. Let's go back and see what we can learn from this. And yeah, and that was also another thing that I learned, that it also very important for a remote work environment, because when you don't have that warm, close physical connection between people, sometimes it's kind of harder to read people through Zooms. But when you foster this call, people feel more secure and more courageous to take on bigger, bolder ideas.
Yeah, I love that and completely agree. And I think that's key to enable psychological safety in the workplace, which is like, there are now lots of studies showing that it's one of the most important things to have like actual productive and happy teams working and achieving goals. So yeah, I love that. It makes a lot of sense. And I believe all of that says a lot about your vision as a leader. And also it fits Turing's organizational culture. I'm a huge fan of organizational culture, and hearing I feel like that fits a lot into what we want to shape as Turing's company culture, right? So that makes a ton of sense. Thank you so much, Emma. This has been so interesting, so insightful. I took mental notes all the way through our conversation. And in order to wrap things up now, are there any closing thoughts, any tips at all, pieces of advice on managing globally distributed teams, just as a closing remark to us and our audience?
Sure. I mean, that's one thing that's in Turing has been amazing, and that was eye-opening for me, that how you can work with a really diverse team, like you have people in 14 different countries, and how you can embrace that and deliver high quality, high impact work. Formerly, it had never occurred to me that, hey, you can have a team of diverse people in like 14 countries, and you can smoothly work, and you can figure out how you can be really productive and create wonderful opportunities for learning for other people who are not in Silicon Valley, but they can really learn and share, and they're going to appreciate it very much. So that was great learning for me. I hope other people around the world also get the opportunity to experience that as well.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much, Emma. This has been great. I've learned a lot personally. You are very eloquent, communicate things in such a clear, smart way. It's it's been really brightful. Thank you. Hope everyone has enjoyed as well. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not yet. Leave your thumbs up, because I'm pretty sure this was a super nice Boundaryless chapter. And stay tuned for the next ones. I'm pretty sure more amazing Turing leaders will jump in and also share their insights and ideas. Thank you, Emmett. Again, this was great.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.